Super. Thanks, Caitlin, and thanks everybody for tuning in. This is one of our regular Thursday webinars that we're doing to help educate the public on solar and clean energy. The topic today is a really popular one. We get questions all the time about why do we recommend a certain module for a certain application, and what are the differences between this module and that module. So um, we're going to go over several items here. Let's see if I can make this thing move forwards. We'll first talk a little bit about our company and our background and why you might want to consider our input on this subject, our experience. And then dig into the details of the presentation, the key considerations of evaluating the technology, some specific details to look for. I call this the secrets of a module data sheet. Give you some resources, and again, the links that I'll be sharing, you don't have to write them down. This webinar will be able to be shared for you if you subscribed to this to register, or it'll be available through our website and on our YouTube channel. So Caitlin will be able to send you details of that. And then we're going to have time for Q&A. So as Caitlin said, if you have questions, go ahead and post them in the chat, and Caitlin will be kind of accumulating them and bring them in. And without further ado, let's get started. So solar is exciting. This is a cool graph. This shows from the International Energy Association Agency the actual performance of clean energy growth or solar growth in the solid black. And then every year, they publish a much more flat projection of where they think it's going to go. And every year it defies those predictions and just continues to go up. And that's why we're here today. That's why you're tuned in, because you're interested in solar. So Third Sun Solar has been doing this for 20 years. We've got more than 1,000 projects under our belt, and it ranges from residential of every size and shape to some federal facilities as the first net zero building for the US Army in the nation, or actually in the world. More residential projects all over Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania. A federal project we did, very high visibility. More residential projects, some with storage, some on the ground, some on the roof. Universities, nonprofits is a really cool agricultural nonprofit, organic farming. Lots of residential projects, government entities. This is a bus facility in Akron. And all in all, we basically do the design, the installation, and the service. So we've got all that experience under our belt to bring you important information that helps you decide not only whether or not to go solar, but also what technology to use, which is the subject of today's presentation. And at the end of the day, yes, they pay us money. You, our clients, pay us money to climb up a ladder and bolt things into your roof. But really, it's really about trust, and trust with picking the technology, selecting the electronics, sizing the array, understanding what options to select, understanding how to finance it or pay cash. It really comes down to trust, and that's how we look at our relationship with our partners. We are about 50% large commercial. There's a project we did in near Dayton, and then about 50% residential. So the key considerations that customers look for when they're evaluating a module, or more importantly, what we look for when we're going to select modules that we're going to recommend to our clients. We basically, I'll go down this list here. So you'll hear some people talk about tier 1 suppliers or tier 2. So this is Bloomberg New Energy Finance publishes a list every year, and they basically evaluate all the manufacturers on the global marketplace. And depending on the size of their manufacturing footprint, how many years they've been in business, and what the strength of their company is behind the balance sheet. They award this tier 1, 2, or 3. And for the most part, most of our competitors here in Ohio will only use a tier 1 or tier 2 module. Third Sun Solar will only use a tier 1 module. But once you start shopping on the internet, or maybe there's some newer, less experienced installation companies popping up all the time, it seems, they might be selecting a module that someone is giving them for a very low price. Usually you get what you pay for. And so that might be a tier 2 or a tier 3 module. The second important factor to consider is the actual technology. Yeah, people say, oh, we've got 36 solar panels or 36 solar modules. Yeah, but what kind? Are they polycrystalline or monocrystalline? And if they're mono, are they PERC, in PERC? Are they split cell, half cuts? Are they 5 bus bar warranty? It's at the end of the day, it's overwhelming. And in fact, in addition to the important stuff, there's some less important features that some of the kind of hopeful module manufacturers kind of lead with to try to confuse customers. And it's a shame. So if you're an engineer and want to get down into all the details, that's fine. Come to us with questions. We'll give all the answers and talk about the difference between an in-PERC and a mono-PERC, and what light-induced degradation looks like with this option or that option. If you simply want it to look good on your house, perform well over time, and be reliable, trust us. Ask us questions as much as you want, but at the end of the day, we've been doing this for 20 years, and we're banking on doing it for another 20 and then another 20 after that. And we know that if we put poor quality equipment into our systems, it's going to reflect poorly on us and impact our ability to do this over and over again. And that's what we like to do. So we can get into the weeds on the technology, but if your eyes start to cross on that, then just pick a good partner and hope that your partner is treating you with the respect that we do. Now, again, back to, I've got 30 modules, and this proposal has 26 modules, and this proposal has 28 modules. The number of modules is not as important as the size of the array. We measure the size of the array in kW, kilowatts, at DC at standard test conditions, or STC. Very rarely will people talk about the size of the array in AC output. So it's almost universal that when you talk about an array, this one might be 7.5 kW and that one might be 7.6 kW. So what that comes down to is the energy output per square foot of module. So again, most of the modules are roughly the same size, but one module might be a 400 watt module, and that same size module from another company or from an older version from the same company might be 300 watts. So the year that your module is made greatly impacts the output. And so again, somebody might say, oh, we've got a 26 module system for you that's less expensive than their 26 module system. Well, apples and apples, you need to compare the kilowatts of the system, not just the number of modules. The most important piece here is you're not just buying a system for today, you're buying a system for plus or minus 25 to 35 years. So you want this system to continue to put output out reliably over that time period. So we look at how long has the manufacturer been in business, how long have they been making modules, how stable are they as a company? Are they going to come into the market and then leave the market, or are they here to stay? What's their reputation? Do they have a good reputation? Are they popular amongst the commercial entities that evaluate these companies for a living? Or are they spending a lot of money on marketing and internet advertising, but they haven't earned that reputation? So that's something that we take very seriously and is part of our diligence process. We get into the warranty terms. Until recently, almost all modules had 20-year warranties. A lot of the leading brands have increased that to 25 years. And that's their energy output warranty. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is their product warranty, and those range between 8 years and 10 years typically. Um, uh, and so that's another factor. One of the manufacturers we carry has a 25-year product warranty. They've been making these modules for almost 50 years, so they can do that. Then one of the things that we see often in the field is when modules do fail, one of the reasons they fail is because they've cut corners to try to reduce their cost on several items, including the back sheet. The module is manufactured with glass on the front, a rigid aluminum frame, and then on the back, they put basically a thin piece of plastic, essentially, called the back sheet. And there's a lot of different suppliers of back sheets, and some will supply less expensive back sheets. And as you would imagine, when you spend less money on the materials, you get poorer quality. And so a lot of the failures in the field from lower cost modules come from the back sheets. One of the other important aspects of the module that we look at is the connectors. Now, if you look at a picture of module on the back, there'll be a small little junction box and then some wires that come out of it with some little jumpers, some little connectors. Those are oftentimes called MC connectors. Unfortunately, there's lots of suppliers of copycat connectors. So there's a brand that's more expensive than others, but it's got the highest quality. It's from Germany, it's the industry standard. And then there's a lot of copycat brands. This didn't used to be as big of an issue. But now that most of our rooftop systems are using solar edge optimizers or even in-phase brand microinverters, what we're finding is that some of the failures in the field in the industry come from incompatibility of the brand of connector. In fact, the National Electrical Code specifies that the connector must be compatible with the other apparatus that you're connecting it to. So that's one of the important things we look for. The weight of the module, just like if you're buying a pickup truck, this one is a solid heavy duty truck. It weighs more, it's got more steel, it's got more strength to it. Same thing with a module. One of the things that the lower cost or cheaper modules do to cut corners is they use thinner glass and they use less aluminum around the frame. It's as simple as that. So that's one of the telltale signs of cheap modules is they weigh less. And then I'll dig into the fine print of how to read a module data sheet for the more nerdy people tuning in. But even average consumers that are buying, there's some key considerations that I'm going to point out that most of the installation companies that are sending out proposals don't call attention to, and there's probably a reason. So this is a picture of a thermal cycling test that's being done by one of the testing agencies. I didn't mention it earlier when I was talking about our company, but one of the advantages of Third Sun Solar compared to anybody else selling solar in Ohio is that we're a member of the Amicus Solar Cooperative. So Amicus is about 57 member owners. Third Sun is an owner of Amicus across the country. And it's other market leading companies in California and New York, everywhere in between. And we've all banded together to share information and to purchase modules together. And we actually have a module technology selection committee. I'm a member of that committee, along with some engineers and other, really smart people smarter than me for sure. And together we evaluate which modules Amicus will procure and recommend to our customers. One of the things that we do, in addition to visiting the factories overseas in Korea or in Singapore or in Japan, is that we also subscribe to and pay for industry-leading third-party technical evaluations. So this is an example of one of those being done by DNV Labs, it's a global engineering firm headquartered in Germany. And uh, companies that are building multi-million-dollar solar fields and are making huge investments in solar pay for these reports. The reports themselves are thousands of dollars. Amicus has paid for these reports also. And so we actually have third-party testing done on all the modules that we recommend to our customers. So some of the reports here are, again, PVEL and DNVGL. And so these are just a snapshot of the top reliable modules. Some of the biggest names in solar, Trina, Hanwha Q cells. We sell a lot of those on our commercial clients. REC Group is presently our favorite, most popular module on the residential side. And then Suntech. Now, Suntech's an interesting one. You can see the little absence here. They went bankrupt. So they might actually score well on the module reliability index. Technically, they've got some quality technical aspects to them. But as a company, they borrowed too much money. And when the market hit some turbulence on a global scale, they went bankrupt, leaving their customers empty-handed. So it's a balancing act of technological evaluation as well as the strength and reliability of the company behind the warranty. I mentioned the backsheet defect rates. So this shows you, these are the percentage of backsheet defects. So this is one of the technologies, polyamide, one of the least expensive technologies. Over 10 to 15 years, they had more than 90% of the backsheet defects. And then a small, scant kind of percentage here was Tedlar. And over 10 to 30 years, Tedlar is one of the only brands that has actually been in business over that long period. So they're one of the only people out there. Almost all of the oldest modules are using Tedlar. And then there's some more recent entrants. We've got polyethylene terraphosphate and PVF also. And again, you can see that the actual chemistry of the backsheet makes a difference. Here's another report from another lab, PVEL. This is called power degradation. So power degradation, every module, no matter what the technology or who the manufacturer it is, it might put out 100% of its power, or sometimes 105% of its power in year one. And then it slowly degrades over time. And that's just an aspect of the physics and the chemistry of all of these technologies. But as you can see from this graph, some degrade much more over time, maybe 10%, and some of them degrade, a very little bit over time, between 1% and 2%. So this power-induced degradation, or PID, is one of the important aspects that we look at when we recommend a module to our clients, both commercial and residential. And a lot of times you might pay a small premium for a better module at the get-go, but over time, you're going to get more energy. And so your actual cost per energy unit produced is going to be better. So again, just like with miles per gallon of your car, it's an important aspect along with the first price and how it looks and all the other reasons we buy a car. Your MPG is an important piece. And so your PID is a way to measure that with modules. So I got a little sidetracked. I'm going to go back up and go back to this list. So module warranty terms and details, the brand of the backsheet. I guess the manufacturer stability is important. And then whether or not the manufacturer is simply assembling commodity wafers that might have been purchased from lots and lots of tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, or if they're vertically integrated. That's one of the things that we focus on when we're looking for quality. You can't offer a high quality product if you're simply assembling uh, materials that come from a lot of different sources. In fact, sometimes the sources vary. Um, and one batch of modules will have wafers from this factory in Japan, and then the next batch of modules could have wafers from a different supplier in Taiwan. So there's a whole world of secondary suppliers that the brand manufacturer, for instance, there's one company that makes their modules in Toronto, and they just opened a factory in Washington State. And people are excited about supporting North American manufacturing, and there's a lot to be said for the job creation aspect of clean energy. However, that company simply buys commodity wafers from a lot of different suppliers and assembles them. The last stage of production is called assembly, and assembles them in these smaller factories in Toronto and in Washington State. We prefer to have a vertically integrated supplier that actually manufactures every stage of the solar module. So um, here's the REC fab plant outside of Singapore in Malaysia. Um, it's, as you can see, solar powered, so they're actually using solar energy to make the solar modules. Um, but they actually uh, have their own water filtration plant. They have their silicon plant where they make the cells. They have wafer plants where they slice the ingots and do the chemical processing to make it into the photovoltaic cell. Um, they now have an MPeak. It's a different technology that's available on the Alpha. Um, and then they assemble everything. So again, having it all from one supplier means that they can control the quality. And there's some cost advantage as well. So they can give you a better product at a competitive price. So I told you I was going to get into some of the details. Many As solar gets more and more popular, there's more and more people coming into the space selling solar modules and selling solar systems here in Ohio and in the Midwest. And unfortunately, a lot of the salespeople are brand new to the industry. They might have sold, Ginsu knives and burglar alarms last week, and now they're selling solar, and they're not an expert. They're going to have a little bit of solar training, and they're going to give you a little bit of a sales pitch that's more of a script than anything else. And if you ask them questions about the technology, they might kind of look at you with a deer in the headlight kind of eyes, or they might start making things up or kind of trying to bamboozle you with technical gobbledygook. It's unfortunate, some of the stories we're hearing. So I think it's important, if you're going to be dropping $20,000 to $40,000 on a system for your house that's going to have a plus or minus 30-year lifetime of energy output, you would like to know the details. So oftentimes when proposals are sent out, they might or might not name the module, and they certainly don't send the data sheet out. But it's a good idea to request the data sheet. And this is a data sheet from one of the modules that we sell. Here's another data sheet. This is the company that's out of, it's a global company. It's owned by Chinese folks and Japanese folks. It's got a fabrication location in Washington State and in Toronto. So when we get into the fine print, this is the back side. And again, you're looking at this and you don't understand a lot of the jargon, but it should tell you some of the things that you're looking for. It'll tell you the connector. It'll tell you the weight. It'll tell you the actual energy. A lot of times there'll be a single data sheet, and they'll have the 305, the 310, the 315, different model numbers, different wattages on the same sheet, which is fine. That's typical. But I'll show you a couple tips and tricks here. All right, so we zoom in, and so REC Group calls this watt class sorting, and it's 0, and +5. On this other data sheet, they call it power tolerance, and that's ±3. So what does that mean? It's very fine print. A lot of folks would kind of see that and just kind of go right by it looking for other things. But this is pretty critical. What this means is that for this module, if it's a 100-watt module, if it's 0/+5, it means that it's going to be, at the very least, it's going to be 0, and at the very most, it's going to be 305. So that's the range that, if they're selling it as a 300, that's the range that it's going to put out, between 300 at the low end, nothing lower than 0, or +5 at the high end. Now this module over here, if this was a 300, their fine print says ±3%. So on the minus side, it might be 97% of 300, which is, I guess 301. I'm sorry, 291. Or it could be plus or minus, it might be +3%. So it might be up to 309. For the most part, companies that have a positive power tolerance are higher quality, and they're focused on accuracy and details, and you're going to get something in the middle. We've actually tested many of the modules we get from this supplier, and they come in right in the middle. So the 300-watt module is probably going to be about 302 or 303. We haven't been purchasing these, but our third-party laboratories that are testing these are finding that consistently they're on the lower side. And so it's very rare that when you pay for a 300-watt module that you get 300 watts. So again, that's one of the important things to look at, is power tolerance. Another piece of the fine print is the warranty. And this is really a way to look at how confident the manufacturer is in the longevity of their system. And so you'll see the power output, guaranteed power output in year 25. This supplier says 86%. This supplier doesn't even call it out here. They're not leading with that. Typically it's 80%. So again, lots of different module manufacturers. The question is, how much power are they guaranteeing you will get in year 25? That's one of the important things to look at. There's a lot of other nerdy stuff, and if there's any nerds in the audience, we can get into that. One of the other characteristics that we look at is the energy coefficient, or the temperature coefficient. Modules do better in colder temperatures, and then as the temperature rises, they put out a little bit less power for each degree Celsius that the temperature rises in the operating conditions. So that's another way that some modules outperform others. Some of the things that I would point customers to, or anyone shopping for solar, is we've got a buyer's guide on our website that goes into some of this detail. We've got an ebook that's larger, that has the guide to going solar. So one of the testing laboratories out there has their module reliability scorecard. And that's not the whole picture, but that actually shows some of the performance of these modules in advanced freeze-thaw, heat cycling, mechanical loading cycling, a lot of different factors. And then Photon is a German company that does their own kind of international shootout, and they've been publishing data for many years. In fact, one of the things they have is their real-world test bed, where they have modules that they install in Germany in a real live situation, in a kind of a shootout scenario, and test them over time. And so that's where they get some of their reliability data. So in conclusion, one of the fun things I like to say is you get what you pay for. And this is a little snarky, but yes, you can find cheap solar. But on the other hand, do you really want cheap solar. Um, for many of us, our home is one of our most valuable assets. We want to add value to it. We want to make it something that we can sell if we needed to, and other people would want to buy it. Um, Oftentimes, you get what you pay for. And some people are out there, and for whatever reason, their financial situation, um, they buy the cheapest thing they can buy, and oftentimes they regret it. We're not overpriced, but we believe we're a good value. And one of the ways we bring that value to our clients is by using quality modules, the subject of this webinar. Everyone's different. So each criteria is different. We actually have different grades of modules that we have. So oftentimes clients that want to hit a certain percentage of energy of their house, if they don't have a very large roof, they might need to use a more energy dense module like the Alpha. Or if they are the kind of people that have a Mercedes in the driveway and a Tesla on the wall in their basement and they want the very best, they're going to pay a small premium for higher quality, even more durable than our what we believe is a very high quality, durable value, middle of the road option. So every customer is different. Um, However, our reputation is important to us, and we're not going to cut corners in order to make a sale. And so we're not going to recommend the quote unquote cheap modules to anybody, certainly not clients that are going to be kind of our family for the next 25, 30 years. I think Caitlin will open it up to Q&A now. She's received several in the chat. So Caitlin, what do you got for us?
Yeah, great. So I've got a couple of questions. If anyone on Facebook or here in the Zoom call is watching and does have additional questions, now is the time to submit them. That would be great. The first question is from Chris. He asks a question we hear a lot. Should I wait for better technology? And specifically, he hears that we'll be getting better soon.
Yeah, that's a great question. I didn't really go into that. So there's two sides to that question is the way I look at it. Number one is there some new technology, some kind of thin film silver bullet that's going to make all this other technology obsolete and people would have buyer's regret? And that's an important consideration. For the most part, no. The answer is what we and not just us, but all the energy experts in the industry project is it's continuous silicon-based solar with slight improvements in manufacturing efficiency, which translate into maybe 1 to 2% gains in energy over years. So this year we might have a 300 watt module. Next year we might have a 310 watt module. So you can get a little bit more energy dense. And then probably more importantly is the cost per watt of that module. This year, a system that we install might cost $3 a watt all in. Next year, because the efficiency is improved and the supply manufacturing has improved, we might be able to sell that same system at $2.95 a watt. So prices do go down slightly over time. Prices do go up. I'm sorry, performance does go up slightly over time, but we don't see any magic silver bullet. Even really cool things like the Tesla glass that are, I guess being hyped. It's still in the R&D stage. They are not manufacturing it at scale. We're following it very closely. I'm a big fan of Tesla. We do not recommend anybody hold their hopes out for Tesla glass in the next 5 to 10 years. Maybe they'll have it dialed in 10 years and it'll be past the beta testing stage. But right now, it's too risky. There's massive failures in the field. They just canceled tons of orders that people put deposits on. They're going back for different revisions. We think the Tesla Powerwall is dialed in, but we did not recommend Powerwall 1. We told customers, wait, it's overpriced for the value you get. There's technical glitches that they need to work out. And now, years later, after the initial technology was launched and refined and refined and refined, we recommend it. Um, so one of the other considerations then is if the price is going to slowly go down over time in the future and the performance is going to slowly improve over time in the future, why not wait? And that's a tough one. Um, Obviously, my laptop that I'm broadcasting from, uh, it was already out of date the minute I bought it. But I bought it. I wanted a laptop. I needed a laptop. I'm getting value out of this laptop. Um, and the cost of waiting and having my old cruddy laptop that kept bogging down on me, or having no laptop at all, is certainly a cost as well. So by not going solar and continuing to rent your electricity from the utility, you miss out on savings over time. The sooner you go solar, the sooner you can start getting free energy from the sun and start paying off your system. And then the other, probably the most important, I save the best for last. The biggest reason I would recommend clients not to wait is that even though the technology is slowly getting better, the tax credit is quickly going away. So the tax credit last year was 30%. This year it's 26%. It drops again next year and then goes completely away. So even if your solar might be 2 to 4% better if you wait a year, your tax credit is going to be much worse. And so your net bottom line economic benefits of going solar are going to get worse by waiting. And of course, you'll be using nasty, dirty carbon, old school energy while you wait. Long answer to a short question, but it's complicated. Caitlin, what else do we have?
Yeah, good answer, Geoff. So from Kevin on Facebook, he asks about module warranties. Do they include performance? And specifically, he has PID, an acronym in parentheses.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I briefly mentioned, maybe we'll do a separate webinar just on digging into warranty details, because not all warranties are created equal. You've got some simple words on the website, but then you got 4 pages of legal words on the actual warranty. Um, so you've got the 2 main components of the warranty. One is the product warranty, and that's typically 10 years. For us, as a certified REC installer, it is 25 years for the REC product that we install because we're certified. But average company and us a couple of years ago, it was 10 years. And so that is, we put it up as a massive failure. It stops putting out output, or it falls apart, delaminates, or some other kind of a mechanical failure. That's covered under that product warranty. That's never happened to us. In thousands of systems, we've never had a product warranty claim. The second component of a manufacturer's solar warranty is their production warranty or their energy warranty. And that's typically expressed over time. And it's maybe it'll produce 80% of its nameplate power in year 25. And that does include all the degradation, including PID and light-induced LID, light-induced degradation, and PID, power-induced degradation. So that incorporates that. It incorporates slightly browning of the encapsulant at year 25 after 25 years of sun, all sorts of different parts of the physics of the technology putting out less power every year for its operating life. And so the fine print is, are you going to get 80% of nameplate at year 25? Or are you going to get 92% as the Rec Alpha? Or is it maybe 86% as in some of the other products? So those are the fine print to evaluate over time. And that we're not as concerned if you're using a tier 1 manufacturer. We, again, have never had a single warranty claim over energy production over time. The modules themselves are very solid, the ones that we use. But it's also a proxy for how much the company is going to stand behind their energy projection, including their technology of PID.
Great. We have one more question. How is the power output of the modules affected by very cold temperatures, 32 degrees or below?
It goes up. So I mentioned briefly that module temperature or cell temperature coefficient is one of the things that brand A and brand B might be different at. And so when a module is sold as a 300 watt module, a lot of times they call it 300 watts at standard test conditions, or STC. And so that's, you know, an industry standard so that we can have different manufacturers test their modules with the same standards, which is great. Now, those standards are at a certain light, 1,000 watt meters per meter squared, and also at a certain temperature, is where they do the flash test. Now, the same two modules, a 300 watt and a 300 watt from manufacturer B, if they have different temperature coefficients, on a typical Ohio 79-degree day, this module might be putting out 260 watts, and this module might be putting out 245 watts. So that's part of the modeling that we do using pretty advanced software to actually project out. When we're giving our customers an energy proposal, we're telling them with a great deal of certainty how much energy the system that we're selling is going to generate on an annual basis, with more energy in August, less energy in December. And we're standing behind that with a guarantee and a cash back guarantee. We'll actually pay you for shortfalls. That's how confident we are in our experience and expertise in doing this modeling. Nobody else does that in the Midwest. So long answer to a quick question, but in general, cold temperatures improve yield. Although in Ohio, we'll have some super bright, sunny, clear winter days when the system is going to put out almost full output. But in general, we're also going to have clouds and snow and everything else. So what we usually model is average output for each month of the year. And in general, even with higher temperatures, we have more sun, longer days in the summer. And so in August, day is going to produce more power than a December day.
Great. And just a reminder to folks on Facebook, we're moderating the questions there too. So if you have any questions on Facebook, feel free to ask them. But these are coming from Zoom right now. Chris, who asked before about the panel efficiencies and waiting for better panels, says, let's say 10 years later, you want to upgrade the panels. Are they able to be taken out one at a time?
Yes. So that's one of the good pieces of news, is that the systems all go together kind of like erector sets. And so we have racking where we put the module on and we use a clamp from the top, and we can take the module off and put a new module on. In fact, we're starting to do that more on a commercial scale with some of the much older systems that are out there. For the most part, most of our customers basically put it in, and then even though they've got modules that are 10 years out of date, and we've been doing this for 20 years, so we've got customers with modules that are 20 years out of date, they're still enjoying the power coming from those modules, and treat it similar to the utility companies. We've got out-of-date power plants. We've got 100-year-old coal-fired power plants here in Ohio, and the companies continue to maintain them and keep them running because they're going to make more money operating that inefficient old plant versus making a new investment in the latest technology. Now, our goal is to put those plants completely offline with solar, which has got a big advantage because the energy source is free. So long answer, I'm good at those, but swapping out your modules 10 years later is an easy thing to do.
Great. And there was another question asked, is it possible to install a system that allows someone to be completely off the grid with full battery backup? This kind of plays into solar panel efficiency, do you think?
Yeah, the module efficiency is part of that, and the answer is yes. Here's one. I built our house before we started Third Sun Solar as an off-the-grid house, and we operated on 100% solar and wind power until the wind generator broke the third time, and we expanded the solar modules. And we've gone through 3 different battery banks, and right now we have a Tesla battery bank. We actually did bring the utility into our house. So now we have geothermal heat and we have an electric car, and we're still net zero because of our solar, and we've got the batteries. So we have a hybrid. We have a utility interactive system, but we have many clients. We just finished wrapping up an install for a 100% off-grid client. To be off-grid is certainly not for your average customer. There's some people that want to do it. They're ready to kind of have that responsibility of having to keep a closer eye on their primary source of energy, which customers that have the utility and solar don't have to do. And they have a generator. They almost always have not just batteries and a large solar array, but they always have a fossil fuel fired propane, usually backup generator as part of the system. It's automated. And it's pretty fun technology. Our engineering team loves to get into the details and build these really cool technologies. Most of them you can control from your phone these days. So you can be out of town on vacation and see how your system back in Ohio is doing, and press some buttons and adjust things if you want. It's pretty amazing what the technology does these days.
Great. I haven't seen any more questions come in. Feel free to send them and we can get to a couple last ones if anyone has any questions that have come up in the past few minutes. Again, just a reminder to you all, we do have a lot of content on our YouTube channel as well as our Facebook videos. They've been recorded there, covering everything from off-grid to solar FAQs. There's a lot of great content there. So we encourage you to check it out. And also thank you so much for being here today. It's great to get the opportunity to connect with folks in this way during this time. So with that, I don't see any additional questions coming in, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Geoff, for taking the time to spell this out for us.
Hey, you're welcome. I did want to, I just switched my virtual background. The previous background was a project that we did up in the Cleveland area. Pretty cool rooftop commercial project. But here's my battery. So you can see behind my head this is the inverter. And so that's a typical inverter that takes the power from the modules, a DC, and converts it to AC power. And then this is my latest and final battery upgrade. I've gone through the old-fashioned lead acid batteries, and they wear out, and I have to go add water to them. They're nasty. They give off acid and sulfuric hydrogen fumes. This is the lithium ion technology, and it's fantastic. So this is my system here in Ohio that I'm currently running on. I think we've got some YouTube videos that give a deeper dive into my system and into battery considerations.
Yeah, I just linked in the chat box. There is Geoff went off grid with his Tesla a few weeks ago. So his recount of that experience is in the chat box right now. Great.
All right. Thanks, Caitlin. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And whether you go solar with Third Sun Solar or somebody else, go solar.
Great. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, everyone.